It is a good night to the people of Trinidad and Tobago and to everyone that is joining us across the globe right now. How is everyone doing? It is such an interesting day in Trinidad and Tobago, honestly, for all of you joining on TikTok, YouTube, Facebook. Just remember David K. Welch across all social platforms. On TikTok, it's actually TBN, Trinidad Broadcasting Network on TikTok. Good night, everyone joining on TikTok once more. That I can see. Facebook, I'm now getting it up and, lovely. Got it up and running right now. All right, so good night again to everyone across the globe, mainly in the United States of America. Good night to President Trump. Good night to the vigorous, boisterous, demanding, captivating, excruciating Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, the Honorable Kamala Persad-Bissessar, because tonight's show, wow, I have never seen a Prime Minister that comes under so much scrutiny outside of those that come from the United National Congress. I mean, I was barely old enough to follow politics under Basdio Pandy, and I'm old enough now to follow politics under the Honorable Kamala Persad-Bissessar and the UNC-led administration. And I have been around for the People's National Movement, and I've never seen so much hate, so much transgression, and so much iniquity in Trinidad and Tobago for any political leader or any particular person outside of the United National Congress. So that's interesting. But today we have, again, the opposition leader, and I think that she's happy that she now has an official title. I think that's what she was waiting on all these years. I think for 10 years, what Penelope Beckles was waiting on is an official title. I mean, she did leave, and then she returned as the Member of Parliament for, down on her ends. I don't even remember where it's at because they consistently vote in PNM. And, you know, we don't focus on that across here. But she returned as a Member of Parliament, and she was quiet for 10 years. She was even quiet when the then Prime Minister, Keith Christopher Rowley, suddenly chose to appoint a Prime Minister, Stuart Richard Young, as Prime Minister to the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, which I think broke several laws in Trinidad and Tobago and wasn't as diplomatic as, you know, persons would like to believe, because due process is what people are asking for now, right? Due process is what persons are asking for now in regards to the Venezuelan situation, and say that, yeah, the people could have been innocent, and Kamala's statement to kill them all violently she should not have made, and we must follow the law. And if the law is what we should follow, then how was Stuart Young appointed as Prime Minister to Trinidad and Tobago? If we want to talk about following the law and following the Constitution and so much here in Trinidad and Tobago, how was he appointed? The thing is, it's a smoke screen that the PNM always like to put on. It's a facade, and unfortunately people get that narrative a lot more, because as we all know, the PR for the PNM is better than the PR for the UNC. And UNC, for the government now, they barely even have a communications unit. Hint, hint, we need a communications unit. And we need persons on social media that is willing to defend what is right and defend the government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, because it's 10 long years we've been going through the PNM. Tonight on this show, we're going to go back to COVID-19 as well, because Penelope Beckles have a lot to say. I don't even think she was here for COVID-19. Penny, where were you for COVID? Were you in Trinidad or were you locked out of Trinidad? Which one? Because I really don't know where Penelope Beckles was. I don't know where she continues to show up from. But this here is what a lot of people are up in arms over right now. A vessel being taken out by the United States President Donald Trump. In fact, now, right here at home, the opposition leader, Penelope Beckles, has taken to social media criticizing the Prime Minister, Kamala Persad-Bissessar, over her statements on the recent attack by the United States on a Venezuelan vessel. Prime Minister Kamala Persad-Bissessar noted via WhatsApp, a WhatsApp message to the media, that the United States should, quote, kill them all violently. It is these statements the opposition leader, Penelope Beckles, questions, noting that it was reckless, distasteful, and inconsistent with the laws of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. as well as she would have indicated that the Prime Minister is not upholding the Constitution, which is a facade I think that Penelope is trying to create. But Ms. Beckles noted, quote, her inflammatory social media output draws our country into unnecessary conflict over which we have little to no control and can put our legitimate fisher folks, offshore workers, and other workers in the maritime space at risk. I'm continuing. Furthermore, it disregards the potential for heightened tensions between Venezuela and the United States, which can be best reduced through prudent and diplomatic exchange. That is what Penelope Beckles would have stated, Trinidad and Tobago. And just in case you are wondering what type of approach the PNM is looking forward to and what type of governance the PNM is looking at for Venezuela, is this. The PNM thinks that Trinidad and Tobago should be doing what the Honorable, I shouldn't even call him Honorable, what the former Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago is doing. This is the former Prime Minister, Keith Rowley, dancing with the narco-terrorists across there in Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro. Y'all remember this? This is him dancing. This is what we should be doing in a time like this. Penelope Beckles says, and the opposition says, that Trinidad and Tobago needs to take a neutral stance. And neutrality is what we're looking for. This is what we want. We want to be neutral. We don't want to support Venezuela, nor do we want to say that we support in Venezuela. We want to be neutral. And our neutrality is dancing with Nicolas Maduro, going across there. Not only that, but also bringing a narco-terrorist into Trinidad and Tobago's waters. Remember COVID-19, people? When we want to talk and we want to say all kind of thing right now about Kamla Persad-Bissessar, it was this Kamla Persad-Bissessar that stood in defense of Trinidad and Tobago. It is this Prime Minister. It is this Prime Minister that stood in defense of Trinidad and Tobago during COVID, and she brought in the first shipment of vaccines right here in Trinidad and Tobago. It is this Prime Minister, Kamla Persad-Bissessar, that also revealed Delcy Rodriguez airline being right here in Trinidad and Tobago, which was sanctioned by the United States. It is this Prime Minister, Kamla Persad-Bissessar. In fact, I am more so surprised that the people of Trinidad and Tobago seem to think that this is the first time that Kamla Persad-Bissessar made such bold statements. It is not. In fact, when Venezuela threatened Guyana, it is this Prime Minister, Kamla Persad-Bissessar, not Keith Rowley, and she was the opposition at the time. Kamla Persad-Bissessar, as leader of the opposition, stood in defense of our neighbors, Guyana, and she didn't have to do that. Trinidad and Tobago alarm bells were risen, and they said, hey, Kamla, watch your tone, watch your tone. The same narrative today, watch your tone, watch your tone. But whenever someone threatens our neighbors, Trinidad and Tobago, being the leaders in the Caribbean, or should be the leader in the Caribbean, must not stay quiet. And this is what Kamla Persad-Bissessar said.
Listen, my clear message to Maduro tonight is, if you interfere with the Guyanese people, you interfere with the people of Trinidad and Tobago. You touch one, and you touch all. We fully support the people of Guyana in this crisis, and we call upon Maduro to obey international law and stay out of the lands occupied by Guyana. I also tell the Guyanese people what I tell you all the time: stand your ground. Stand your ground.
But no, that's not leadership. That is Prime Minister or opposition leader Kamla Persad-Bissessar being uncareful, malicious, callous, apparently. While Keith Rowley, again, when he was Prime Minister, he said absolutely nothing. He said nothing in regards to Guyana and Venezuela. He went dancing with Nicolas Maduro, but a leader with a heart not only for Trinidad and Tobago, but also the Caribbean, said touch one, touch all. But you all worried about CARICOM? CARICOM was started here, right here in Trinidad and Tobago. The purpose of CARICOM is not what it's doing today. We could barely afford food. You all remember COVID-19? That happened. Our Prime Minister went to Guyana to invest in agro-processing when we have an agro-processing plant right here in Maruga Tableland that was left abandoned for over 10 years. He came and he went to Nutrimix to talk about chicken for Trinidad and Tobago. And then he went down to Point Lisas to talk about bags. We're gonna start manufacturing our own bags, and Trinidad gonna be manufacturing bags, and they're gonna make us big. Down Point Lisas. Imagine that. That is growth for our economy. Rowley, where is that at now? Where the yam, Rowley? Where the yam? You went to Ghana for elections to walk your obia, to come back to Trinidad and Tobago for elections, talking about you bringing yam for the country. Where the yam? It was your minister, Clarence Rambara, that talked about leveling every playing field in Trinidad and Tobago just to plant rice. I think Penelope Beckles forget all of these things. I really do believe it. I think that Penelope Beckles was just waiting again to become opposition leader to talk the amount of bullshit that she is talking right now, because that's all that comes out of her mouth. And I don't going back to Parliament, because we're going to hear the same bullshit in the halls of the Parliament, because they have nothing to offer. Absolutely nothing to offer. No type of good governance could ever come from the People's National Movement. None at all. In fact, let's continue. The United States, and I stand with President Donald Trump. I stand with President Donald Trump, and I stand with him on taking out the vessel. All right? Let me tell you why. Before we move on, let me tell you why. Our history, and I like that we have some persons that talk about our history now, like those analysts and stuff like that you're going to hear from tonight, talk about Trinidad and Tobago's history. Because our history has always been one of neutrality. That's a fact. We've always tried to stay neutral. Everybody could talk about it. They say, oh, we're just a dot on the map and we should just hush our mouth. That's all we should do. But let me remind you that Trinidad and Tobago had some of the largest budgets almost in the Western world. We were at the high rankings after the United States and the UK. Trinidad and Tobago budget was, and it still is, one of the largest in the Caribbean. And with that, we did absolutely nothing with. Not only did we not protect our borders, but we sent back OPVs. That's what we did. When Patrick Augustus Manning, and he warned us against Keith Rowley, and probably I think the warning goes on to every member of the PNM today. But when Patrick Augustus Mervyn Manning spoke to Trinidad and Tobago about OPVs and protecting our borders, apparently Keith Rowley and the PNM and all those that came after just didn't want it. And they didn't want it because there was a report done in Trinidad and Tobago in 2016 by Vice News. Go and look at the report for yourself. Vice News came to Trinidad and Tobago and did a report. And the report suggested that government officials are involved in human trafficking and drug warfare from Venezuela to Trinidad and Tobago. Not just government officials, but it also spoke about businessmen. In fact, let's not even talk about the Vice News report, which you as a lazy Trinidadian could go and look at yourself. Let's talk about this report. This is a CARICOM report that suggests that TNT officers are involved in sex trafficking. The CARICOM report went on to list a bunch of state officials at the helm of that. Not only this report, Trinidad and Tobago, but also, where is it? I have it somewhere here. But also, there is another report, Trinidad and Tobago, from, let me get his picture. Let me get it. Because I want to show you who I'm talking about, because I went and do the research, you know. I went and do the research. This is the article today, the front page today. Kill them all violently. Let's see here. So there was another report, Trinidad and Tobago from, here it is. This is it. 2019 CARICOM report also raised major human trafficking issues. Expert, TNT government showed no interest. And this is by Dr. Justin Pierre, all right? Look at this report, Trinidad and Tobago. If you were to go and read this report, which came out in 2020, look, Earl Christopher named there. Commissioner of Police Earl Christopher Harewood had ordered a probe into allegations swirling in the public over a UNC parliamentarian alleged involved in human trafficking, which was raised in the U.S. State Department Trafficking in Person report in 2020. The government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago did absolutely nothing about this 2019 report, and it was raised again in 2020. And it suggests renowned migration and human trafficking expert Dr. Justine, who led a team conducting a CARICOM human trafficking research project in 2019, says nobody from the Trinidad and Tobago government contacted his team to discuss the human trafficking findings after it was released. The report listed places where human trafficking occurred, the number of persons involved in the trade, and the known human trafficking routes in the massive human trafficking ring. In an exclusive interview with Guardian Media yesterday, Dr. Pierre said the reports was given to the Trinidad and Tobago Ministry of National Security upon completion. He said most regional and international organizations such as the U.S. Embassy officials in Trinidad and Tobago, the Canadian High Commission in Port of Spain, the British High Commission in TNT, and the U.S. State Department, the government of Grenada, Jamaica, a bunch of officials had the information and was given the report. However, he said no one from the government of Trinidad and Tobago had officially reached out to inquire about the study. He noted, however, that the only TNT official who reached out on this report was the former director of the Trinidad and Tobago Counter-Trafficking Unit, Alana Wheeler. Quoting, "We did the human trafficking study. We went down to Trinidad and Tobago and conducted the case study. We got in touch with 29 sex workers. We gave them cell phones and allowed them to go into the community, and we observed." I continue. They observed them getting clients. We recorded we recorded the data. They interviewed some of the traffickers. He also stated that we knew the traffickers, their routes, how they operate, and where they meet. And even though we cannot disclose who they are due to confidential arrangements, we can provide assistance to the government if they are interested in speaking with us. Trinidad and Tobago, you could continue reading this report. Absolutely nothing was done by the PNM. So when Penelope Beckles out on social media and Penelope Beckles calling on the government to do this and to retract statements and watch we need to be diplomatic, watch the tone. Penelope, what was done to deal with the crime situation in Trinidad and Tobago under your regime, under Keith Christopher Rowley? I'll tell you what, Trinidad and Tobago, just before the election, you know what he came to do? You know what the Prime Minister come to do? The Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago at the time, Keith Christopher Rowley, come to call a state of emergency and talking about they have information of persons wanting to take out state officials. The same reason Kamla Persad-Bissessar today, 4 months in or 3 months in, called a state of emergency. That's all Keith Christopher Rowley did. What came out of the state of emergency? Absolutely nothing. During a state of emergency, the Prime Minister, Keith Christopher Rowley, say, hey, I know the country in SOE, but I as Prime Minister don't want to lead this country no more. I about to step down as Prime Minister, but not to worry. Look, Stuart Richard Young, the hero, flying in with a cape to save Trinidad and Tobago. Imagine that. But this leader of the opposition want to come and talk today to tell Trinidad and Tobago that Kamla callous. Kamla need to watch she tone. She need to recognize that there's a bigger country we're looking at when your government did nothing and ran from the problem. Kamla Persad-Bissessar came into office, and she came into office with the same mandate that she's talking about today. Same thing. Load up the matic and empty the clip. And it is the same narrative with the U.S. today. President Donald Trump today is talking about about Venezuela, don't threaten Caribbean countries, don't threaten, he'll be met with the full force of the United States. And I'm not asking for the U.S. protection in this, I am saying that for far too long, the Caribbean have been silent on the issues that really plague us. And I would remind you also that it is the same Keith Christopher Rowley that went to the United States of America in Washington, D.C., sat there, he couldn't sit down there with Donald Trump because Trump don't like him for nothing, but he sat there with Joe Biden to sign and say, U.S., all you can drop troops in Trinidad, but now all you're vexed. It's the same man that went and asked the U.S. for help during all of these summits that Keith Rowley went to. They went to a summit, Mia Motley stood up on a stage and they spoke about assisting the Caribbean in its illicit drug and gun warfare. And it spoke about guns and ammunition coming through not only our illegal ports of entry, but also our legal ports of entry right here in Trinidad and Tobago. Y'all asked for heightened security. We had a whole parade of U.S. troops coming into Trinidad and Tobago, going straight to the diplomatic center. Y'all remember that? And Kamala Persad-Bissessar and the UNC was asking how much money it cost, because at the time in Parliament, the same stooges that talking today went to Parliament to slash the teeth out of procurement legislation so government could spend money as they want. But those are the same people, and they brought all the U.S. people here in Trinidad to talk about guns and ammunition and what's happening in the U.S. and Venezuela and to assist Trinidad and Tobago. And then government change, and because Donald Trump is a man that has say something and action on it, the U.S. and everybody up in arms over it, right? We up in arms that this happened. We up in arms that this happened. I think Donald Trump has been very much a man of action. When he say he's going to do something, I think he does it. But anyway, it is 24 already, and the sponsors, sorry, somebody go pick up on that later. But the sponsors of this program is requesting a break. Trinidad and Tobago, don't go anywhere. Call your friends and family. Somebody tag Kamala Persad-Bissessar because we need a Minister of Communication. We'll be back.
If your child doesn't understand what they read, SCA becomes 10 times harder. That's why Learn Smart TT has created an online comprehension and poetry course. This is completely self-paced with all tools accessed online. It's 30 passages, 30 poems. They can be downloaded or answered on our site. From there, students get access to answer sheets that have detailed options of how the answers could have been written. No other product on the market has this. In addition, they get access to a video tutorial with an expert teacher walking them through the passage or poems using high visuals and techniques to ensure they derive meaning. Also, we model how we derived each answer so they can do the same. If you want your child to enjoy all of these benefits and propel in comprehension, SCA, and general academic life, click the link above and register for this course and join hundreds of parents and students who are benefiting.
Welcome to SNS Persad Group of Companies, a dynamic community-driven group serving multiple industries with excellence and integrity. At SNS Persad Supermarket, we're committed to community, providing vessel export delivery, custom food services, local delivery, wholesale solutions, fresh produce, in-house bakery, and premium meats. Discover relaxation reimagined at Sunset Beach Resort, with beachfront stays and dining that blends local flavor with ocean views. perfect for families and couples. At Cuts and Curve Fitness Center, where health meets lifestyle, with personal training, meal plans, a full gym, and on-site cafe. The SNS Facade group of companies, building value, trust, and community across everything we do.
Is facing mounting criticism at home and abroad after her endorsement of the U.S. military to violently kill drug runners.
While the opposition leader is calling for a retraction, international relations experts are simply cautioning the head of government to watch her tone. Here's more. According to the United States Coast Guard's rule of engagement, the approach to drug cartels, human smugglers, and interdiction at sea requires strict procedures. The Department of Homeland Security suggests that the shoot first and ask questions later does not align with the Coast Guard's use of force policy. It's why the recent U.S. strike on a vessel in the Caribbean Sea, killing 11 alleged drug traffickers associated with the gang Tren de Aragua, has raised concerns. Here at home, those concerns have been escalated, not particularly by the Prime Minister's endorsement of the operation, but by her position that the U.S. military should, quote, kill them all violently. Professor Emeritus of International Relations, Anthony Bryan, warned that her words are contrary to the country's historical position of neutrality.
The language that was exhibited recently by the Prime Minister is destabilizing. We've always been a neutral country. This is my point. A foreign policy based on neutrality. Have we abandoned that?
Professor Bryan said as tensions appear to escalate, tempered tones are topmost.
I think we have to tread cautiously and not be vociferous in the way in which the Prime Minister has been. Yes, it's all right to be friends with President Trump, but you don't have to become the incarnation of President Trump.
Professor of International Relations Andy Knight further challenged the legality of the recent U.S. operation. He contended that the use of lethal force in international waters against suspected drug traffickers raised questions about the proportionality of the response and that, quote, in international law, proportionality is a sacrosanct principle. Professor Knight contended that President Trump appeared to have violated international laws and that Prasad Bissessa's position also makes her complicit. Meanwhile, opposition leader Penelope Beckles has since called on the Prime Minister to retract a statement, saying her call to violently kill drug traffickers is inconsistent with the oath she took to uphold the Constitution and the law. She added that given the insufficient, varying and contrasting details provided to the regional public on the attack, Prasad Bissessa should give some clarity on the location of the vessel when it was struck by U.S. military. Now, according to a report published in the Barbados Today, Barbadian Foreign Minister Kerry Simmons said foreign ministers within CARICOM have written to Secretary of State Marco Rubio to ensure that future military operations within the Caribbean don't occur without prior notice or explanation.
We reached out to Foreign and CARICOM Affairs Minister Sean Sobers on whether he's among the CARICOM group of ministers to sign the letter to the United States Secretary of State. However, there's been no response up to news time.
The Prime Minister Kamala Prasad Bissessa's support for the deadly U.S. attack and her pronouncement that traffickers should be killed violently is now generating international media interest.
The controversial statements, originally reported by the Associated Press, have since been picked up by CNN. As a result, it has escalated discussions on the matter beyond this country's borders and across the United States. The case has thrust Trinidad and Tobago into a broader international debate over the legality, morality, and proportionality of the hardline approach by America's new anti-drug cartel policy in the Caribbean.
Well, it was either we were going to be recognized internationally for our music or our stance against Venezuela. One out of the two. Marshall, thanks so much, but he's the only one that really propelled Trinidad and Tobago forward. I guess not far enough because we don't even want Nicki Minaj in Trinidad. It was Keith Rowley that sent Nicki Minaj packing when we were flooded out, right? He said, we don't want your money. When Nicki Minaj talk about my friends or people down, in Penal and all those places, we even have Wi-Fi. It's a reality, it's the truth. But it was either that or this. I guess CNN picked this, right? But Trinidad and Tobago, President Trump violated international law is what the media coming out to say, is what CNN and them would say. I mean, what is new? Tell me what is new. They said the same thing when Trump went against the Middle East, those in it was Russia, Ukraine, right? And for the first time ever in history, you see President Trump in a long time, no president really in the U.S. actually went and meet South Korea and went meet China and Russia, Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump together. Jesus Christ, where the world going to, boy? But I too side with Kamala Persad-Bissessar on this. I mean, this is the second time Trinidad and Tobago's name was raised in the United States. One was by the vice president talking about Trinidad and Tobago crime rate and comparing it to Washington, D.C. and saying, hey, Washington, we have a spike across here, Look, we have a higher murder toll than Trinidad and Tobago. That is crazy. That's crazy. And now Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, raised the name Trinidad and Tobago yesterday.
Yeah, the president made the announcement and said it was a lethal strike. Suffice it to say that the president is going to be on offense against drug cartels and drug trafficking in the United States. It destabilizes not just the country, but the entire Caribbean basin. These particular drugs were probably headed to Trinidad or some other country in the Caribbean, at which point they just contribute to the instability these countries are facing. So the president's been very clear that he's going to use the full power of America and the full might of the United States to take on and eradicate these drug cartels, no matter where they're operating from and no matter how long they've been able to act with impunity. Those days are over. This is a counter-drug operation. We're going to take on drug cartels wherever they are and wherever they're operating against the interests of the United States. The president's top obligation is to secure the national interest and the national security of our people. I know of no president that means that more than this one, our president now, President Trump. And so, but I'm not going to speculate about what might come down the road.
He's not going to speculate about what might come down the road. And neither should we in Trinidad and Tobago, because we're doing a bunch of speculation right now and worrying over nothing. Worrying over Venezuela. Oh, they have more missiles than we. They could blow you up in an instant. Blah, 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 blah. Let me also show you what Venezuela could do to us. And I want somebody to go ahead and tag. I know I call Penelope name a lot. If I had a cent for every time I called her name, she would be a millionaire by now. But I really want Penelope Beckles to take a listen. This is me being serious, people. I'm real serious. I want Penelope Beckles to take a listen to the next clip that I'm about to play, because it is under Keith Rowley again that all of this happened. It was particularly during the COVID-19 pandemic. And during the COVID-19 pandemic, our borders were closed. It just wasn't closed for anybody else that is not Trinidadian. It was closed for the Trinidadians. No Trinidadian could have come back home, because if a Trinidadian come in home, a Trinidadian could bring COVID. If the Venezuelans were coming, no COVID. If Delcy was coming, it had no COVID across there, apparently. The Venezuelans did not contribute to a spike in COVID in Trinidad and Tobago. Apparently that is factual, right? Because the Venezuelans had access to our healthcare system, they had access to our... In fact, they were more on the beach than Trinidadians were on the beach. When it is that man tell us that, hey, the beach closed, I was surprised. I was like, a prime minister could shut down a beach? Under what law? We challenged it in the High Court and everything like that. We challenged Gary Griffiths in the High Court. We won. Number one, Gary, good night to you. I was surprised, and I am still surprised, but during the COVID-19 pandemic, you remember Kia? Kia is still a thing? Where's Kia? Kia, where are you? Because Kia would have gone to the Oval. I went to the Oval, Port of Spain side, and there was the Venezuelan registration was going on across there. Because You couldn't get work, but Venezuelans, of course, look your work. We thought that they were going to be able to vote right here in Trinidad and Tobago. Thankfully not, because now PNM might have been in power. They might have been in charge. But it was a crazy time back then. And more so for the people of Trinidad and Tobago, because God rest Andrea Barrett's soul. She got murdered. A lot of things happened. Women protested in Trinidad and Tobago. Y'all, I'll do calls just now. I know people want to call. Again, it's already. But a lot happened. And Penelope Beckles, this is me being serious, I want you to pay close attention to what else happened in Trinidad and Tobago under the Keith Rowley-led administration when they allowed, for how many? It was like 16,000 Venezuelans that could have gotten registered in Trinidad and Tobago, but a report from the international media suggests that over 50,000 came running to Trinidad during COVID.
The murderous and notorious Venezuelan gang known as Evande has infiltrated the borders of Trinidad and Tobago. Intelligence sources say these findings are contained in several recently completed secret reports prepared by various arms of the local law enforcement authorities with the upsurge in crimes involving Venezuelan nationals in the country. Guardian media saw these reports, which highlighted the worrying trend of the Venezuelan gang Evande, which they say has several hundred of its members illegally in this country. The gang has more than 650 members. This gang, the secret report says, have been responsible for several violent crimes in Venezuela, which include high-profile kidnappings and murders. The members of this gang, the secret reports revealed, have since embedded themselves with local gangs and have also sought jobs on construction sites across the country. The reports also pointed to the gang's involvement in the trafficking of narcotics and firearms into Trinidad and Tobago. What authorities have also unraveled in their intelligence reports is that members of this particular gang fled Venezuela for Trinidad and Tobago, not only to escape rival gangs, but also the Venezuelan Guardia Nacional that were given instructions to dismantle this particular gang due to their violent and heinous nature. One senior intelligence official said this is going to have a domino effect in Trinidad and Tobago. With more drug seizures, someone is going to have to pay the price. Another high-ranking intelligence officer familiar with the situation said that these Venezuelan gangs operate with a different modus operandi. Criminologist Darius Figuera, who spoke to The Guardian last Saturday, said Venezuelans have been coming to our shores under the control of Venezuela's organized criminal gang. Figuera also alluded to the fact that these Venezuelan gangs form coalitions with local gangs around Trinidad. He said those Venezuelans have already affiliated themselves with local gangland operators and they are not afraid to die. Guardian Media contacted Commissioner of Police Gary Griffith for his take on the secret intelligence reports, but he refused to make any comment. He was also questioned about Figuera's findings of Venezuelan gangs now infiltrating the country. Griffith would only say he was not in a position to say whether Figuera's comments are inaccurate. The two senior intelligence sources revealed to Guardian Media that they received credible information that at least 3 Venezuelan nationals shot and killed over the last month and a half, with some were connected to the Evande gang. The first Venezuelan national they say had ties to this gang was Alexander Sidena Roroba, who was shot and killed outside the El Pecos Grill at the corner of Arapito Avenue and Devil Street, Woodbrook. The second Venezuelan man intelligence sources reveal, who also had deep ties with Evande, was 36-year-old Jose Rodriguez, who was shot and killed by a lone gunman while driving along the Western Main Road near Highland Plaza, Glencoe last Thursday. One of the senior intelligence sources explained that Rodriguez was able to get a shipment of cocaine from a Colombian link for a businessman in this country. However, the shipment was jacked by police several months ago, and Rodriguez told the businessman that the money was still owed to the Colombians for the multi-million-dollar shipment. The businessman, the intelligence source explained, had Rodriguez executed to cancel out the debt. The third Venezuelan national, who was never identified and his body found dumped off Moncoco Road, Piti Valley, with multiple gunshot wounds and hands tied behind his back on February 21st, sources say was also a member of this gang. The man they say was an asylum seeker, but police sources told Guardian last week he worked as a hitman in Venezuela. Mark Besant, CNC3.
And there you have it. There you have it. A lot does take place in Trinidad and Tobago, that goes on and on and on and on. And the people that claim every election time that we're going to stop it, don't. Because they don't do what Kamala Prasad-Bissessar say, and they do, kill all traffickers, because they're afraid to say something on these very issues, right? Here's a question, and I'll ask, well, now we have a new Attorney General, but I need to ask the Attorney General, what is happening with Christmas List story? Christmas List was arrested and charged under sedition in Trinidad and Tobago, and some uprising he's supposedly causing by recording the very gang members that in the country. I have had persons that ask me the very important question, or say the very important thing. If it is that the government knows the gang members, why don't they just go and arrest them, right? Because you clearly know. In the article, Mark Besant 100% know that state contracts are given to gang members, not only of Venezuelan descent, but also Trinidadian descent. I think that's a known fact for a lot of persons across the country. Under the PNM, we saw where Cedric Berkey was allowed in the president's house. That's madness. And as I talk president's house, where is our president? What's her name? Normally she does hop and go everywhere and she in everything, but now I'm hearing the president, who is supposed to be defending Trinidad and Tobago, saying nothing. I say we really don't need a president, and we can put all of that on Kamala, because it seems as though a woman has more balls than man right now in Trinidad. Imagine that. You take a woman, a female prime minister, the Honorable Kamala Prasad-Bissessar, to stand up against a totalitarian leader such as Nicolas Maduro, the narco-terrorist in Venezuela. A woman standing up to that man. In fact, this leadership, under the leadership of Kamala, this is the most amount of females we have had in government. I mean, we're making history, but it only have one woman leading the pack. And maybe I should rightfully call her the mother of the nation. Now, I usually don't like the statement mother of the nation, but I might as well call her the mother of the nation, because she's the only one that have the balls to stand against Nicolas Maduro. Keith Rowley left his balls in Venezuela when he went across there. He left it in the mouth of Nicolas Maduro, apparently. And Kamala Prasad-Bissessar retrieved it and actually stood up against Nicolas Maduro. And I don't think it would have mattered if it was Joe Biden in charge or if it was President Trump in charge, because in 2023, Kamala Prasad-Bissessar also stood up against Nicolas Maduro, and everybody thought she was mad. I and all thought she was mad, but I supported it. I'm like, it is far too long, this nonsense with Venezuela is happening, where their people are infiltrating Trinidad and Tobago waters. You're talking about fishermen. I hear Penelope talk about fishermen. And I want to remind Penelope Beckles that it is also under your watch that our fishermen were captured and were taken to Venezuela and held for ransom. And that is where the saying, if you go out on the water and you get captured, don't go on Ian Allen program and complain if it is that you were selling drugs to Venezuelans. Right, that's where the statement come out from. And it came out from right under the PNM nose. So Penelope, if you're so worried about fishermen and friends of the sea, then you would worry about that too. You would protect Trinidad and Tobago. In fact, one of the reasons why the fishermen was captured was because the vessel had no fuel. I ain't understanding what Penelope's saying. Is under your watch the vessel had no fuel. It's also under Penelope watch that the galleon's passage sank on its way to a different Caribbean country. Our own boat is under Keith Rowley and them. That nonsense happened, where two boats park up in the ocean, and citizens had to jump from one boat to the other because one wasn't moving. They had a problem. It's under your watch. It's under PNM. We rented, we leased the Jean de la Valette for $1 million a day. Help me, Penelope. What we talking about here? I have a bunch of paper here. Penelope, what we talking about here? How is any of this Kamla Persad-Bissessa's fault? Kamla had to watch she tone. You had to watch yourself because you're irrelevant. I saying irrelevant, but I'm talking about you. Oh, God. Anyway, Trinidad and Tobago. Let's take a break.
If your child doesn't understand what they read, SCA becomes 10 times harder. That's why Learn Smart TT has created an online comprehension and poetry course. This is completely self-paced with all tools accessed online. It's 30 passages, 30 poems. They can be downloaded or answered on our site. From there, students get access to answer sheets that have detailed options of how the answers could have been written. No other product on the market has this. In addition, they get access to a video tutorial with an expert teacher walking them through the passage or poems using high visuals and techniques to ensure they derive meaning. Also, we model how we derived each answer so they can do the same. If you want your child to enjoy all of these benefits and propel in comprehension, SCA, and general academic life, click the link above and register for this course and join hundreds of parents and students who are benefiting.
Welcome to SNS Facade Group of Companies, a dynamic community-driven group serving multiple industries with excellence and integrity. At SNS Facade Supermarket, we're committed to community, providing vessel export delivery, custom food services, local delivery, wholesale solutions, fresh produce, in-house bakery, and premium meats. Discover relaxation reimagined at Sunset Beach Resort, with beachfront stays and dining that blends local flavor with ocean views, perfect for families and couples. At Cuts and Curve Fitness Center, where health meets lifestyle, with personal training, meal plans, a full gym, and on-site cafe. The SNS Facade Group of Companies, building value, trust, and community across everything we do.
What if we told you that one course could boost your child's performance in every SCA paper? That's why Learn Smart TT has created an online comprehension and poetry course. This is completely self-paced with all tools accessed online. It's 30 passages, 30 poems. They can be downloaded or answered on our site. From there, students get access to answer sheets that have detailed options of how the answers could have been written. No other product on the market has this. In addition, they get access to a video tutorial with an expert teacher walking them through the passage or poems using high visuals and techniques to ensure they derive meaning. Also, we model how we derived each answer so they can do the same. If you want your child to enjoy all of these benefits and propel in comprehension, SCA, and general academic life, click the link above and register for this course and join hundreds of parents and students who are benefiting.
There's no way that you are now beating this unbeatable back-to-school sale right here at S&S Passad Supermarket. Get right now the 4x6 notebooks, 2 for $20. 8x10 notebooks, 2 for $29.95. Coloring books, 2 for $29.95. Drawing books 8x10, 3 for $20. Drawing books 10x12, 2 for $20. 2 subject notebooks, 2 for $25. 3 subject notebooks, 2 for $25. Copybooks, 10 for $20. Coloring pencils, long, the 12-pack, 2 for $25. Markers, 6-pack, 2 for $20. Markers, 12-pack, 2 for $25. Crayon Jumbo, 8-pack, 2 for $20. Crayon Jumbo, 12-pack, 3 for $20. Crayon Super Jumbo, 9-pack, 2 for $25. Crayon Super Jumbo, 9-pack, 2 for $25. Crayon Regular 12-pack, 3 for $20. Stationery Set, 2 for $25. And get all of this today, Trinidad and Tobago, from S&S Passad Supermarket, located there in Rio Claro, Mayaro, and Freeport. All right? Maybe soon we go deliver it to you too. Who knows? To plug it. Get back home. Anyway, so, hey, S&S, I need water. That was long. I need to put a voice to that time. Oh, God, that was long. Anyway, Trinidad and Tobago, for all of you joining on TikTok, Facebook, YouTube as well, thank you so much for joining tonight. I mean, y'all might say I was talk about Penelope Beckles a lot, but oh gosh, man, we leave from one imbecile to next, one imster next. How we could progress as a country if those are the people that lead in the opposition? PNM members, when all they go out and vote for a leader, why all they just vote so stupid? I mean, Mova, Beatum, Sealouts, Laventil, consistently for decades you're voting that stupid. You're still not getting your road paved properly when PNM in charge. And even since them control the area, you ain't getting nothing. All PNM come out to give you again for the Independence Day celebration. They come and they spend $120,000 in Port of Spain, but Port of Spain does smell like S-H-I-T. Every time you walk through Port of Spain, who like to walk through Port of Spain? You like to walk through Port of Spain? Who likes so? I don't even like to drive through Port of Spain. Afraid my tire pick up that stench and carry it to where I live. Because it's so nasty. It's real ridiculous. And there's a PNM area, Diego Martin, PNM area, where all the crime coming out from is majority in these areas. Youths walking with pants below the bottom, and Rowley and PNM say nothing. Adrian Leons, thank God you're gone. The Rastafarian in Mova, thank God you're gone. Mova got no progress under Adrian Leons, none at all. And people still went out and vote for some pastor. What are you going to do? Go in Parliament and pray? Pray over the same party that messing up the country, then your prayer is defeating you. You're in the shit that you're praying against. I can't understand why people just vote so bad in this country, especially those that put Penelope Beckles and Keith Rowley there. You know, they claim sake that they love PNM so bad, right? But Patrick Augustus Mervyn Manning said in Parliament that he is afraid and what he sees in the future for Trinidad and Tobago. And he said, Madam Speaker, I see hate. Madam Speaker, I see viciousness. And Madam Speaker, I see a man completely out of control. That is what I see. And that is something that he wasn't prepared to deal with. He put the man to sit down in the back bench. The man tried to get rid of him. The man said, this is factual, people. This one is factual. Keith Rowley said to the media that he walked in, he obia in Likato to get rid of Mervyn, to get rid of the former Prime Minister, Patrick Augustus Manning. And what happened after? The man died from a stroke. The man went to Likato to walk obia. Your obia ain't working this time, Keith Rowley. It's not working. But that is who we vote for. After Patrick Manning won this country against Keith Rowley, we go and we vote for Keith Rowley. and then we vote for Penelope Beckles. We allow him to give us Stuart Young, a Chinese man. So now a Chinese man tried to make history in Trinidad by saying, yes, I was the first Chinese to run the country. You should have just wait, Chinese. You should have wait. You should have wait a little bit. You could have wait until you could have wait out your time upwards to August. All now PLM in charge, you know. Had he just wait. But you're still there. No worries. You're still there. Trinidad and Tobago, he's still there. We go get rid of them sooner rather than later, you know, but he's still there. I ain't see Camille Robinson Regis in a while. I understand that she has some health issues, so I will not comment on Camille Robinson Regis. I hope you get well soon. But all the talk about your broom brushing the UNC and you know, when Fitzgerald Hines come and talking about the dagger and running through the heart of the UNC and all kind of thing, it's in paying off now, right? Clearly. Let me take you to some positivity, Trinidad and Tobago. The Prime Minister, the Honorable Kamala Persad-Bissessar, says that 20,000 children across Trinidad and Tobago, across the country, are set to benefit from book grants for the new school term. More so, laptop for all.
They say books open the mind, but technology opens the world. That is why the laptops are so important. And if we had carried through with that program, when in COVID the schools were shut down, the students would have still had the laptops to enable them to continue to learn and educate themselves. One prime minister of our country had said that the future of the nation is in the book bags of the children. Today, the future of the children and the future of the nation is in the laptops that are in the book bags of the children.
Preach, preach, preach. So true. I read the TikTok comment here, and you know what? I'll give you the attention. All right? I read the TikTok comment here that asks, you know, what the administration doing, and you say the administration doing SHIT, which is why we always have to talk about PNM, right? So let's talk some good things. Since assuming office, the government has employed over 400 young persons, temporary of course, through TSTT, B-Mobile, right? So several young persons are employed under TSTT in the initiative, the technology initiative by the government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. That is a plus. People have, well, young persons could look forward to something. Since assuming office, well, school is set to reopen next week. Laptops are set to be given out at the end of September, I believe, start of August, start of October. And I think they mentioned about just 10,000 of the laptops to be given out to children across Trinidad and Tobago. Since assuming office, rentals have more than stopped across the country. Kamala made it abundantly clear that we're not going to continue with all of the rentals that PNM is doing, and she will make persons public. So if you don't want your name to be public as part of a state rental, then don't rent the state anything. Not only that, but no longer can ministers get housing from the state. If you want a new house, Kamala said, go and buy it, spend your money, all right? Not only that, but she also threatened members of her government and said, if you are caught in illegal activities, I will bust your head. A statement that apparently the media didn't take lightly, but she should bust your head if you're involved in any illegal activities. Not only that, but there were several new policies set out from the parliament by the government in the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, one of which that says that if you are appointed as a prime minister for just one day and you have not served a year, a full term, then you should not benefit from the $78,000 pension that a prime minister will receive. And not only that, it doesn't cap at $78,000. Your salary will match that of the prime minister, but will be the highest, almost that of the president, higher than the president, and the president is the highest paid public servant in Trinidad and Tobago. You say you're talking about a crime plan, not a problem. If you want to talk about a crime plan, if one thing that you want to address is poverty, right? Some policies that also came up by the government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago is also that of pension and Kamala wanting to remove the tax on pension. So your grandparents, persons that reach the retirement age of 60 or 65, whichever one they want to raise it to, they will not have to pay taxes. They'll get their full pension paid out by the state. That's a plus. Not only that, you want to address crime in Trinidad and Tobago. You know, one of the driving factors is young persons and employment, which is why TSTT, hint, hint, but also the drinking age. People walking around Trinidad and Tobago with mental issues, and we can't send them St. Anne's, unfortunately. We go ram out St. Anne's. So one of the things that Kamala and the government decided to do was raise the drinking age and raise the legal age of consumption of marijuana, cannabis, and those things, those substances, so, you know, quote-unquote illegal substances here in Trinidad and Tobago. The age was risen, so therefore we could look at putting Trinidad and Tobago more towards a first world nation rather than a third world nation. Outside of that, school. This government has been very much open about its policy when it comes to fighting crime through education as well. For 10 years, and this is no joke, since COVID-19, actually since 2015, no schools were completed, no schools were built up. Go and listen to teachers complain. It is under, you know, it's about 2019 into 2020. The Unified Teachers Association protested, almost shutting down the whole of Port of Spain, asking the CMO for an increase in salary. Kamala Persad-Bissessar, leading upwards to budget 2025-2026, said that, and alluding to the fact that persons are going to get a 10% increase. Now, I'm waiting for that because I might have to come back and say something else in regards to that. But a 10% increase is a lot. Rowley offered the country 4%, didn't really fulfill and come through with the 4%, and he's offering, well, Kamala Persad-Bissessar is offering 10% increase. All right? So there's a lot of things that the government is doing. Might I remind you, it's been 4 months now to date that Kamala has been in government for, and we have had a significant turnaround. While I understand that the price of groceries have not dropped just yet, let me remind the people that we are in a budget period. Meaning, the government before Key Christopher Rowley in 2024 would have set the budget from 2024 or 2023 to 2024, 2024 to 2025. That means that you first have to at least A, spend out the money that you're allocated, or B, not spend out the money that you're allocated and wait for another budget period. We already passed a mid-year budget review. PNM wasn't that with Colin Mimber talking about, you know, raising the price of this, raising the price of that. It was a low-hanging fruit budget, basically. He tried to give people all kind of thing and increase, and I think he gave the public servants a little bit of increase, right? So your pay went from what, 20 something to 21 or so, right? See, so they got an increase in pay under PNM, right? Which was a low-hanging fruit budget. So we have to wait for another budget period, which is coming up. October is usually budget, right? So when October reach, all of the promises on the campaign trail, if it's not delivered by then we could have a conversation. But for all the nonsense and chat about, oh, what are you doing? All they're doing, all they're doing. Bitch, wait. Jesus. Wait. Give you a little time. You go see. You'll see something. You'll see what the government will do. All right? What has turned around? A lot. You no longer have to go down to licensing office to wait in that long line and wait outside, by the way, because carrying this, you're waiting outside. I think even up San Fernando, you have to wait outside. You can now go online and either renew your license. You can go online and pay for your tickets. Oh God, man, Jesus Christ. I have a ticket that I'm still waiting to pay for. I wait on the court. Right? You can now go online and pay for your ticket. This is nothing that happened under PNM. Under PNM, you know what they did? They bring buses. They bring the mobile bus unit. So you can now go to a mobile bus unit and conduct your business. That's what they do. Kamala Persad-Bissessar digitalized the whole system in less than 3 months, because this happened last month. Less than 3 months, system digitalized. Not only that, but also receiving government information. A lot of persons just want to know something from a ministry, like how to register a business, and you go down to the Register General. Instead now, you could go online and you could talk to an AI system. Tell me if that's not a transformation. Somebody said that was not done under this administration. You living under a rock or something? I'm living under a rock? I'm living under a rock. You ought to be living under a rock. You're living under a rock. Abdul, you're living under a rock. Your name is Abdul too, so you ought to be living under a rock. Nobody have that name in 2025. You're living under a rock because you need to go and read, sir. You need to go and read. Those things were done by the UNC-led administration, right? You said, but it's true, the UNC never did any of that. What? Literally go on the media? Anyway, I'm not saying anything. Listen, I'm gonna give me like 10 minutes again. Let me open the phone lines for a brief second. 483-3208, that's the number to call, 483-3208. For those of you that want to join via TikTok, simply do the guest request and I'll bring you into the live. I probably will take like 2 phone calls alone for tonight because I'm well over time. So if you want to be a part and have something to say real quick, either do the guest request or call live 483-3208. You could also WhatsApp call. Somebody sent a voice note the last time, right? Are we playing voice notes? We ain't playing no voice notes. She said no. So WhatsApp call or call normal. No, somebody have no money on all your phones. So call normal 483-3208, or you could guest request on the live right now, and I will bring you in to the live broadcast. So let me see what's going to happen. Y'all, this is real give me a hard time because it's in delay. You know, I had to be waiting like 2 minutes before somebody actually call. But that's what we're going to do for now. But yeah, there's a lot of things that has been done by the UNC-led administration that persons are complaining about now. But again, in regards to the whole Venezuela situation and everything that's going on in Venezuela and outside Trinidad and Tobago waters, I think people need to relax a little bit more and recognize that this has been going on for quite some time, a while now, like a long time now, this going on, right? So we have like almost 100 people watching here, people waiting to hear what the UNC has done in their 4 months besides this SOE, but like he differ. You hear me call out a bunch of things that are happening, right? You seeing things happening? We're treated like Ian Allen, you know? Anyway, thank you so much for the follow. Guys, I'm going to wrap up tonight, all right? I'm well over time. I know this is in delay, so... Anyway, have a great night, Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you so much again for joining. We will be live again on Saturday, same time, 8 to 9 p.m., where we go over everything that was done in this week, basically, here in Trinidad and Tobago. We'll keep you informed as to things that is going on in government. If a person's I think I'm not biased, I just bad talk Gary Griffiths and I talked to him last night, right? Come on, man. I said the government needs a minister of communication. We don't have one of that just yet. We need a ministry of a minister of communication. And if I was to give my opinion on who it should be, or they wouldn't like it, right? But thank you so much, Trinidad and Tobago. Thanks for joining tonight. Stay safe. Follow the live as much as possible. Go ahead and follow on YouTube or subscribe on YouTube at David Welch, and on Facebook, David K. Welch or David Welch on Facebook. Thank you so much for joining and enjoy your night. Bye-bye.